All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome this evening, people here present at Sopra Steria and our dear followers at home. My name is Robin, and together here with my friend and colleague Stefan, we are the hosts of the BABOK study group, together with our other IIBA colleagues. So the aim of tonight is not to go already into the BABOK study group, but we're going to explain you a bit together the BABOK. What's it about? What can you find in it? The study group, how are we going to approach studying the BABOK? The study group, it is what it's called. It's a study group. It's not an exam preparation course. We often get this question. Will it help you if you want to achieve an IIBA certification? Definitely, it will help. Previous participants found it a lot easier obtaining a certification, even if it's the ECBA or up until the CBAB, after having followed the BABOK study group. So the agenda. Stefan will do an introduction into the BABOK V3, our business analysis Bible, if you will. And I will explain a bit how the study group will work. What are the expectations? Because it's not an easy thing to do. It's a very rewarding thing to do. And how rewarding it is? Well, we have Joanna over there. She's a double participant. She participated in 2019. And 5 years later, she said, hey, I'm going to join it again. It was fun. And I forgot already a bit about it. And now she's here as part of a volunteer of the chapter. So I'm looking very much forward to her personal story, how she experienced it. And then, of course, we have room for some Q&A. And for the people present here, of course, we can do some in-person networking here, thanks to Sopra Steria. Voila, that's about it. Should you have any questions, people at home, just ask the question in the chat. The team here will ask the question to us. Here in the room, if you have a question, don't hesitate, don't be shy. We're all friends here. Stefan?
Thank you, Robin. So as Robin said already, you don't have to wait until the Q&A session so I have to, yeah, okay.
Stefan prefers to use a Mac, so do I, from time to time. Mm-hmm. Ah, fantastic. Voila, take it away.
Okay. There we go. So, introduction of the BABOK guide. I have a very long version of it. But we're not going to do that this evening. But we have to do a little bit of a helicopter on the BABOK, and I'm going to explain what you can find in it and a bit of the structure. And then, yeah, well, let's start. First, little introduction. Then, what is business analysis according to the BABOK, of course. But the structure of the BABOK guide. We have a few important key concepts, and then tasks, techniques, knowledge areas, underlying competencies, and perspectives. This is a bit, in a helicopter view, the table of contents of the BABOK. So let's go through it. So you might have our key concepts and so on. So we'll get through them, and we're not going to mention them all, but the most important we're going to mention. Okay. This is this little book here. This is our Bible. It's a reference guide. It's not the yellow pages of business analysis, but you can compare it a little bit, and it's as exciting as reading the yellow pages. Not true, but this is what we're going to learn in the BABOK study group. Okay, so it's the only recognized global standard to the practice of business analysis. We also have BCS and other stuff, but which is more locally. And IIBA, the BABOK is the only global and recognized as a reference. Essential and collective knowledge of the global BA community. So people from all over the world has contributed to the development of the BABOK. And there was a review consensus based. So there was a review session global and public to make comments and so on. So and then yeah. Munir. So okay, and then we have to click here. This is context. BABOK Guide. It's a core product for IIBA. It was there from the beginning. IIBA without the BABOK, and it serves as a basis for a lot. So certification, of course, and they have 6-7 certifications, and 3 of them are called the core certifications, and those are based on a BABOK. Competency model, also refer to the BABOK, and so on. There's a lot of stuff that IIBA provides refers to the BABOK. The history began in 2004, but the first major release that went public was in 2006, which is the version 1.6, has been updated to the version 2 in 2009. That's when I started learning about the BABOK. And the current version is launched in April 15th, 2015, which is 9 years ago. Yeah, which is too long ago. But okay, that's what it is. And the scope, so up to the version 2, it was very IT based with some extension to Agile. And the version 3 scope was also business process management, architecture, business intelligence. It was a broader scope because back in 2015, industry was demanding process improvement skills, more strategic thinking, alignment to business goals, and greater focus on change management. So the Agile we already had in version 2, and it continued also in version 3. So in fact, we came from a BABOK version 2, which was more IT oriented, to like business analysis much more, already from 2015, and still a lot of companies don't realize it. So the definition of business analyst, you see a lot of nice words. We're going to share the slides afterwards. And you can find in BABOK the practice of enabling change in an organization by defining needs and recommending solutions delivering value to stakeholders within a given context, which is not shown here, but it's that. So it's a lot. But we got back to another model which shows a bit better what it means. Okay, you can also turn it around. It enables an organization to articulate needs, but by means of it's not the organization who's going to show models, but and rationale for change. Design and describe solutions that can deliver value. It's always value, deliver value. In those 2 definitions, you have to be a bit cautious. Value solutions don't bring value. If you have a solutions and you don't use it, there's no value created. So it's always a value proposition or value potential, whereas the BABOK says like a solution is the combination of solutions with people that use it. So in that context, it's okay. So just a little bit nuance, a bit of context. And that was also new in the BABOK version 3, is you can do business analysis at different levels. Before in version 2, they didn't recognize that. But now, since 2015, they did recognize it. IIBA didn't do a lot on that, on the strategic and tactical stuff, but it was recognized. And I can tell you, if you can do business analysis at the strategic level, it's very much fun. And it can be performed within the boundaries of a project, but also beyond. I know quite a lot of business analysts that do, for example, business process improvement outside a project, and sometimes have a spin-off project that results out of some improvement exercises that they've done. Huh? Now, the structure of the BABOK guide. The core content, and that is also what we're going to work on during the study group, is that there's a lot of business analysis tasks, about 30 business analysis tasks, and they're organized in knowledge areas. So you have the tasks, and they are organized together in kind of collector with 5 to 6 tasks that have something to do together, and we'll get through a few of them. So tasks, no surprise, it describes specific activities, accomplish the purpose of their associated knowledge area, whatever. These are all phrases from the BABOK, and you can see that the phrases are not always the most exciting ones, but you have to take a step back and understand what are tasks. We know it's a specific activity or set of activities, and the knowledge areas, it's a collector. It's a collection of tasks. Then you also have the business analyst key concepts, underlying competencies, techniques, and perspectives. Yeah. Now, this is the table of contents of the BABOK. It starts with the first chapter, which is an introduction. Then you have key concepts like stakeholder and so on and so on. Then you have those knowledge areas, 6 knowledge areas. Then you have techniques, because each task can be performed by one or more techniques. A task like, how do you do this task? Well, you can do it with these or these techniques. We know what gets in there and what needs to get out of there. Then afterwards, after techniques, you have underlying competencies, and then you have perspectives. What those are, I'll explain very soon. But this is the table of contents of the BABOK. Contents, not context, contents. Sorry. Any questions here? Also from home? No? Okay, so far so good. So a few key concepts. I'm not going to mention all of them. So we mentioned them, but we're not going in depth. So we have the BACCM. That is something I'm going to show, the BACCM. Some key terms. Stakeholders. We're not going to depth to stakeholders. Stakeholders are people that are influenced by the change. Influence of or have an influence on the change, or both. That's it. Nothing more. And the requirements classification scheme is also something I will show today. Yeah. Okay. So the BACCM. Remember the colors that we had in the definition? These are 6 core concepts. And those are, it's a conceptual framework, which for the business analyst profession. In fact, the BACCM, with which is going on the left, it's in fact the definition of business analysis. And I think this will speak louder than the nice definition we had a few slides ago. Yeah. Okay. This is an important thing. I'm going to go one back. We see 6 core concepts. I trust you that most of you have worked with needs, because requirements are kind of translation of needs, solutions, and stakeholders. Is that a good assumption? Yeah. Okay. Who of you have also dealt with change? Raise your hands. Also at home, raise your hands. Okay, that's good. That's good. That's good. Because in fact, doing business analysis to facilitate change. There's a change wanted. We help with that change. Yeah? Wait.
What is the difference between business analysis and requirements analysis?
Well, can you write that question down? Because I would like to reply to that question at the end of this presentation. I think that's better, because we get through that. Okay? And it's a very good question. It only came a little bit early. But I will definitely get back to that. Okay. Who of you has already worked with value? Raise your hands. Value, okay. And if from those who have worked with value, who of you worked on value not only for customer, because very often customer value, but also for people from the back office, they also want to have value. Otherwise, they won't be very happy. So value is not only because customer value is something you see in a lot of projects, but value is not only for the customer. Because if the back office employee doesn't get value and is unhappy, he might leave, and the customer will be even less happy than before. Okay. So, but there's a sixth one. Whoever of you has taken into account during the business hours context. Yeah. And I'm going to explain you why it is with an example, why it is important. But okay, so each core concept is defined by itself and by the 5 other. In fact, you don't only have 6 core concepts, you have 15 relationships. And in fact, 21. The very first version of the core concept model had this one, and it had a recursive relationship between each of them, because needs can be linked to other needs. Have dependencies and like requirements and so on. So if we only would take care about needs, solutions, and stakeholders, and don't take into account context, value, or change, we will not understand needs, solutions, and stakeholders good enough to provide a good solution. So you need to know at least all 6 of them, even high level. You need to know enough about all 6 of them. Otherwise, you might run into problems. And we'll see an example of that. And then all of the concepts are equally important. Stakeholders don't like to hear that, but it's true. It's true. And then, of course, business analysis, the BACCM you can apply at all levels. And we will see an example at a very high level. Any questions on the BACCM here or at home? Nope. Okay, let's go to an example, because it's a model. It doesn't always speak for itself. Okay, so let's take an example, the UK economy. What kind of stakeholders do you have? Consumers, of course. The people that provide stuff for the consumers, and a government, of course, to facilitate the economy. Okay. If you see what kind of needs they have, it's not rocket science. Those are needs from consumers or merchants and manufacturers. A government has also those 3. That's always easy access, good income, because they need taxes and so on. But they also want to have good trade deals, because that facilitates a good economy. Control of those trade deals, control over legislation. And there are also implicit needs, like the Good Friday Agreement, the Irish border. Many of you have already heard about that, but those are implicit needs. Not explicit, but very implicit. And so when they were inside the EU, things were going quite nice. They had a good economy. They were the 5th or the 6th economy in the world. Just before California. It's no longer the case. California is only a state in the United States, but they have dropped quite a lot. We'll see that. So the only thing that the government was a bit annoyed about, they didn't have control of the trade deals, because they had to agree with 26 other countries. They didn't like that. They're not a team player. And legislation, a bit similar. So the EU legal court, they could overrun local laws only for certain materials, not on every level. Okay. So during the transition period, people remember that there was a transition period, things were going quite well. Only the control of the trade deals, they could, I'm going to, it's, yeah. So, yeah, control of the trade deals, they had to deal with 26 other countries, and so that was a problem. And during the transition period, the control of legislation was vague. There was it was not 100% clear. But then there was the Brexit, the final Brexit, and things were going very wrong. Even those 2 that the UK government didn't like. So what happened there? So the 2 things they wanted to, so they didn't have to take into account the ideas of 26 other countries, but they had a smaller market. So, for example, you go as an EU towards India. We want to have a trade deal. We are a market of 500 million people. India says, okay, yeah, okay. UK comes up, hey, we want a trade deal. We only have 50 million people. India laughs. With about 1 billion people, I think, at the moment, more or less. So they didn't have the leverage. They didn't have the same leverage. So they didn't have to take into account the opinion of 26 other countries within the EU, but they did have much less leverage. So it was not going so much. And what you can see, the Good Friday Agreement, that was even a worse problem. They kind of put some plaster on top of it, but it's still a problem, but they covered it up. Now, in 2018, I did this exercise in London with 80% English business house, and this is what came out. And there was no agreement. There was nothing about transition period. They spoke only about a soft Brexit and a hard Brexit, what we assumed it would be. This is what came out at the end. The transition was kind of a soft Brexit, and the real Brexit was in fact a hard Brexit. So this has nothing to do with IT, although that if you have a border, the border security has impact on IT, probably. Border security, some applications that need to be developed. And so these are only 1, 2, 3, 4 dimensions. So stakeholders, needs, context, and those smileys, those emojis are the value, the perceived value of the stakeholders. So it's the four dimensions. But you also have the change and solutions, changes and solutions that are not here. So, but this is at a very, very high level. You can apply it at each level. Okay, let's carry on. Requirements classification. We come closer to the question that has been raised earlier. And at the end of this, I'll probably answer to that question. So a requirement is a usable representation of a need. In fact, it's a translation of a need in something that is tangible, something you can do something with. Because a need can be sometimes gut feeling, but a requirement makes it, for example, a solution requirement is a classification, a category that we know, needs to help you to develop a solution. It needs to be tangible, measurable, and so on. Yeah, and it focuses on what kind of value. For example, in SAFe and Agile Scrum, you see that a user story needs to have some certain value that needs to be delivered, for example. So the first we have is the business requirements. In fact, the business requirements tell us why we're going to do a certain change initiative. So it's why. You'll get those slides, so you can read the text afterwards, but it can apply to the whole of an enterprise, a business area, or a specific initiative or combination. For example, a whole enterprise, or maybe only HR, or finance, or a specific initiative. We had a few years ago, the GDPR. It's an initiative, and that business requirements apply, for example, on GDPR, and that's more compliance for it. But let's have an example, a real-world example that lives in a few years ago and has been implemented meanwhile in Belgium. So a leading food retailer wants to create new business. Why we're going to change? We want to create new business. That's the reason why. And it specifies a little bit more because we want to open the market with people with food constraints by choice or for medical reasons. By choice, religion or medical reasons. So it can be mandatory, religious, or lifestyle, personal conviction. I don't want to eat meat because I don't want to have animal to suffer, but then you have to become even vegan because even with their products, animals suffer. So why create new business? That's the reason. Stakeholder requirements, those explain what the stakeholders want. What needs to be done for the stakeholders to meet those business requirements. So the business requirements are there. This is the light tower, and the light tower, and you have to see this is where we want to go to, and the different stakeholders have the needs that relate to going to that direction of the light tower. And what we can have is business requirements should not contradict. Should not contradict. You only have a few, 2, 3, 4. Why? There are not that many reasons you want to do a big change. But stakeholder requirements, you will have quite a few more. And those can conflict and very often will conflict. And then we are business analysts. This is the domain we should be working at most of the time. This is our domain most of the time. Should be our domain. This is my personal conviction. Okay, this personal conviction. And we are the good people to find compromises that the conflicting stakeholders, the stakeholder requirements can be solved. So you have to put at a certain moment those people together and find requirements that satisfy those of the conflicting stakeholder requirements. We'll continue with the example. As a consumer with food allergies, I want to find effortlessly recipes that take into account those allergies so that I can enjoy the pleasure and the preparation, the pleasure of preparing a meal instead of, oh, I'm allergic to this or I'm allergic to that. So it's kind of user story. I call this a stakeholder story because there's not a solution involved. It's a stakeholder story I like a lot because it says who, what, and why. So, what? Then solution requirements. Remember, the stakeholder requirements were also a bridge between business and solution requirements. Those are the requirements that we know best. There's no doubt about it. That's what we know. And you have, for example, 2 known subcategories, which is functional and non-functional requirements, quality or service requirements. And those are explained. The keyword is there, how. So how are we going to assure that what the stakeholders need will be met? What the stakeholders, so how, what, and why? Okay, so we are going to create a website where the consumer can create an account, indicate very well protected, because if someone knows your allergies and takes advantage of those allergies, which is secure and responsive, which is a non-functional requirement. So, so this consumer can create the predefined food profile. Say like, okay, I'm a bit intolerant for wheat or dairy products, but peanuts, I might die from peanuts. So some wait until each problem or each constraint, and then find those recipes, but map the recipes with the products, of course. We still want to have more business. Remember the why? Okay. And then make a shopping list. And in fact, with that shopping list, could you go to your telephone or maybe online to deliver, or go to the store? You say, I'm going to that store. Okay, here's the milk. Okay, here are the eggs, and give you a route through the shop, the supermarket, and guide you through your shopping list. And it wasn't there. I think it already resulted in something. Okay. And then we have a last one, transition requirements, which is very different than the 3 other ones because they are only temporary there to bring me from the as is to the to be. Okay. What we know, because transition requirements can be on different levels, even technical. For example, database migration, that's more technical, but it's also transition requirements. But also, you see training, that's a good one. Training, if, for example, you give a training to say like, hey, scenario A, on PeopleSoft, we did this way. Now on Dynamics, we have it to do it that way. Those are transition requirements. But for the newcomers that arrive at the company, that didn't know the PeopleSoft installation, say like, hey, scenario A, you do it this way. on the platform we're using, which is then Dynamics, for example. That is a solution requirement. The training for newcomers is a solution requirement. The people from that were there before and needs to migrate from one situation, that training is a transition requirement. And here, so the keyword is change, which is obvious, of course. And for example, set up a marketing campaign to make it loud and clear and let people know that it exists. Okay. Okay. So this is the requirements classification scheme that I built.
Do you still want to mention the sustainability requirements?
Well, thanks for asking, Robin. There is a fifth category, which has been introduced in the business analyst standard. And that was introduced in November 2022. And it introduced a fifth category after 16 years, because in 2006 we had the very first version, already these 4 categories. Sustainability requirements. But there is some danger that it will die a very early death, because the next version of BA standard, I did a review and they were talking about scrapping the sustainability requirement, which I find very sad. Very, very sad. So, but since we're doing a BABOK study group, we're not going to mention them today. There you go. That was a tricky question. No, but it's good. Thanks for asking anyway. So, as I said, there are only a few business requirements, a number of stakeholder requirements, which result in solution requirements. And remember, a stakeholder requirement can be linked to more than more than one business requirements. So you can see some nods and then multiple relationships. Same goes between stakeholder requirements and solution requirements. Yeah. And then you have the transition requirements, which can link to stakeholder requirements and solution requirements, but that would make the drawing a bit too crowded. Yeah. Okay. This is my own drawing, following the definition between the relationships and other stuff in the BABOK. And this is the drawing in the BABOK. So you start with business requirements. If you're in a project and you can't find business requirements or nowhere, like, why are we doing that? Ask the sponsor, the product owner, whatever. You have to ask. You need to know why. If you don't have a common understanding of why you're doing that, and no one wants to give one, run away, because that will fail. That will run into a disaster. Run away. So you have to say, like, why are we doing this? If sponsor or whatever doesn't come up with why, run away. What? First, you have to know why, and then what? What do the stakeholders need? Then, if you have a common understanding of what the stakeholders need, how are we going to make sure that those stakeholders have what they wanted? And then do the change. At the end of the change, see, still everything running okay? Oh no, we have to look again. Maybe we need another change. It's a virtuous circle. Some people will call it a vicious circle, but I call it a virtuous circle. Yes.
With regards to the business requirements, why are we doing an initiative? Why are we doing a project? So 9 times out of 10, let's not forget, it's either to make more money or to save money, become more efficient. That shouldn't always be the root reason or root cause of doing a project or an initiative. Quite often, this can be a consequence. So in the examples Stefan has shown you, you haven't seen anything related to monetary value. Let's not forget that. The why are we doing something? That's the core reason on which we should focus in business analysis. The numbers, okay, it's always a part of it, but it should be a consequence. And that's a very important context to take as a business analyst. Don't just focus on the monetary value. Value can be very tangible or very intangible, leading to tangibles. Sorry, I just wanted to add that.
Thank you. Thank you. You see, we do this already for quite a few years. So we are very well playing into each other. We know each other very well on that level. And I think I'm going to answer to the question that was asked before. Difference between business analysis and requirements analysis. Well, it comes also with a definition. Requirements, I see requirements as a way to go to a certain, like Robin just said, I see business analysis as the core purpose of business analysis is facilitating or co-creating better business outcomes. That's for me the core purpose of business analysis. And the requirements are a means to an end. So requirements analysis is focusing on the means. Business analysis is focusing on the outcome. That's how I see the difference.
Again. Yeah, and also again, I think a major difference we see is the way or the degree in which you're able to challenge your stakeholders or even the senior management. As a true business analyst, you can sometimes be a very annoying person, not because of your character, but you need to ask the annoying questions. Quite often, especially when I interview C-levels, they can get quite annoyed with the annoying questions I ask, but main idea is to get them to think about the value potential we might realize. And if you just take the vantage point of a requirements engineer, which is a very well-known job title, there you're not that much into that role of challenging the C-levels. There you more focus, you focus a bit on the what and especially a lot on the how. And that's a very big difference. That's my vantage point on that.
And thanks for that vantage point, because I want to add to that is requirements analysts or requirements engineer. The focus is most of the time on solution requirements. And it's not going, why are we doing that? Good requirements engineers do that more and more, but then they're more taking the role of a business analyst. So the focus is in requirements engineering, requirements analysis, very often the solution requirements. If a requirements analyst would be also focusing on the other categories, then I call him more a business analyst, but then he would be a good requirements analyst.
And then again, if you see that if you're a requirements engineer, or if you have that role as a requirements engineer that you fulfill, regardless of the job title, obviously, you often arrive into an initiative when certain decisions have already been taken. We're going into that direction, or we're doing it that way. Strategic and tactical choices have already been made. If you're more into your true business analyst role, there you're still able to help influence the decision, help businesses achieve better business outcome, strategical and tactical decisions. So there's a very big difference in that.
Yeah, if the company where you're working for organization allows you to. 1 second. So another thing, Einstein, who doesn't know Einstein? Who doesn't know? Okay, good. Einstein once said, if I have 1 hour to save the world, I will take about 55 minutes to understand the problem, to really understand the problem. 5 minutes would be sufficient for a solution. And I believe this is the core about business analysis, to understand the problem or opportunity, which is a positive problem. This is what we first have to do before we think about solutions. And very often we get in projects where they're already talking about solutions and no one ever spoke about the problem. And then you might be solving a very nice and very nice solution, but to the wrong problem. So you don't want to have that. But that's a waste of money and resources. Okay, task techniques and knowledge areas. That is a bit the core, because up to now it was a bit about the introduction. Tasks, as I said, discrete piece of work, formally or informally, because during the BABOK study group, you'll see that there are quite a lot of tasks, 30. Some you will recognize, some you'll say, but maybe you have done in your head without doing them formally, which is okay. Some of them, it's okay. You don't have to perform all 30 of them, maybe 28 or 27. Just kidding. No, but some of them you do sometimes in your head, or maybe on a little doodle that you are making, okay? And it's universally. So it's beyond techniques. You use techniques to complete the task. For example, the BABOK you can use also in non-IT world very well, very well. Yeah. Yeah. Nice, blah, blah, blah from the BABOK. Yeah. This is very important. The BABOK doesn't prescribe a process or an order in which tasks need to be performed. It's not a methodology. It's not. Okay. It can be performed in any kind of order, but a task has some inputs and outputs. And if you don't have the input yet, because you have to perform another task, sometimes you might perform that other task a bit high level, because in the beginning, you don't have always all the input. So we will see also during the BABOK study group that you sometimes go through a task several times. And the more you go through them in a later stage in a project, you'll get more defined and more specific inputs. A business analyst initiative may start with any task, although likely candidates are analyze current state. Because in analyze current state, there you're going into the problem analysis. That's the place you're doing it, or opportunities, because you see things are not going well. What is not going well? Go root cause, problem analysis, or measure solution performance. For example, you might not be aware there's a problem. So you might need to measure what's running here. Your operational performance, solution, operational performance, you might want to measure it to find out if there are problems. Is this what we want to achieve? Is this okay? With the KPIs that we have put ourselves on top of that. A lot of people end up quite late. Techniques. That's fine. So techniques, I don't have to explain. Additional ways. And remember, the book is 9 years old, 9 years and a half. Close to 10 years. 50 techniques. Of course. And in the BABOK, you'll find per task what kind of techniques of those 50 you can use in that specific task. But during all those years of BABOK study group, we've seen more techniques have evolved in those 10 years, of course, 9 years, 10 years. And we also see people using a technique which is not linked to that specific task, but using for that task and stuff like, hey, shit, we never thought about that.
And then we ask the most annoying question we can ask. Why did you do that? And you will answer that question.
In fact, this is what we ask from the very first beginning. If through a technique, a task, you perform two or three techniques for one task, why did you use that? Why did you involve those stakeholders? Or why not? Yeah. This is the idea of the BABOK study group is, as Robin said earlier, is not to prepare yourself for an exam. It's for you to understand the BABOK much better. And if one day you want to prepare for an exam, but you understand the book, it will be much easier to learn. Yeah. So that's the idea. Yeah, not exhaustive, of course, 10 years old. But many of those are the basic ones, the process analysis, document analysis, and so on and so on. So from the 50, probably the most that you use are still in there. Yeah. And sometimes you create your own techniques. If you get more experienced, sometimes like gut feeling technique, let's do this, let's do that. That's fun. Or use a technique differently than it was meant for. Yeah. Oh, one second. Yeah. A technique can be formed in more than one task, as I said before. Interview you can use in so many, or workshop in so many tasks. Knowledge areas. Okay, let's go through them. I have for each knowledge area also a slide, and sometimes two. I'm going to scroll them, but I'm not going to. Let's use this drawing. Okay, business analyst planning and monitoring. If you want to do business analyst tasks, you need to prepare a little bit for that. What is business analyst monitoring is not taking your agenda, seeing the people availability. That's in elicitation. No, it's like, who are my stakeholders? Understanding your stakeholders, how to approach them, how to engage with them, because you need their collaboration, that kind of stuff. Yeah? Stakeholder engagement approach and that kind of stuff. Yeah. So that's the planning and monitoring. Yeah. See how you progress and so on. Yeah? But not how you progress alone, but also progress within compared to what the company needs. Okay, next one, elicitation and collaboration. Those are two little knowledge areas, because you have elicitation, which is retrieving or getting information out of people, out of documents, out of a manual, whatever. And collaboration, how you collaborate. So those two knowledge areas in one. Elicitation is something that you use for strategy analysis and for requirements analysis and design definition, which I'll go into just after this. And collaboration use throughout a whole project or a whole, it's to collaborate with people. And for collaboration and elicitation, you need to know how to approach your people, your stakeholder engagement approach, for example. So there are links already between business analysis planning and monitoring and elicitation and collaboration. But elicitation and collaboration you use primarily for strategy analysis and requirements analysis and design definition. Strategy analysis, that's analysis at strategic level. It's like, what kind of change does this organization need? Things like a business case. It's not a task. It's one of the techniques, for example. Why are we doing this? And how do you approach the change within the organization? How does the organization, what's the context of the organization? That kind of stuff. Requirements analysis and design definition, most of you will feel more comfortable there, because you're going to design requirements at all levels. The 4 levels, the 4 categories. This is where you're going to do that. And designs, not technical designs, design, business analysis designs. Okay. Then I'm going not to solution evaluation, I'm going to requirements lifecycle. So you build the requirements, and then you're going to see relationship between dependencies, for example. Or you're going to see if they're draft or they're already validated or whatever. Are they maintained? Because requirements, things change throughout the project. They have to be maintained and that kind of stuff. And then solution evaluation can be during testing. You get your solution, you want to test. Testing is not a business analyst task. We prepare testing, building together with the business on scenarios and so on. But testing itself is not a BA task, which doesn't mean you can't test that. Nothing forbidden. But also, as I said before in the example, without a project, you might do a solution evaluation, like how good are we performing as an organization, our environment. Solution is environment, can be an IT solution together with the people that are working around them. That's in fact the knowledge areas. That's it. And you're going to spend 8 sessions on them. Okay. Yeah, as I said, if I read something that is no, you get those slides. The task to prepare for and conduct a list. Yeah, communication. Yeah, okay. Next, strategy, collaborate, enable the enterprise to address that need, align the resulting strategy for change with higher and lower level strategies. Strategy, lots of strategy. And then this is building structure, organized requirements discovered during elicitation requirements. We don't gather requirements. We elicit information to design our own requirements, to design the requirements. If people say gathering requirements, no. We're not a secretary writing down what the business wants. No, we need to understand their needs and convert those needs in requirements. And if they're conflicting, try to find compromises. Oh, sorry. Solutions that meet, yep, estimate the potential value. Yeah, value. Remember that a requirement is always measured towards the value it produces. And incremental iterative activities, of course, iterative, incremental, things that we all understand. Then the lifecycle management, that's what I explained earlier. And then solution evaluation, yep, covered. Yeah, now we have seen the 6 requirements. So if you have a project, first you have to see what we want to do with the project during the project and after the project. So first, rationale, why we want to do that. Then the delivery, and then grasp the benefits and might measure again, because maybe the benefits you had in your mind were not achieved. And if you translate that to the knowledge areas, you remember those with 2 circles, the middle circles, those are the things where things happen. Strategy analysis, requirements analysis, design definition, and solution evaluation. Those are the middle, the core knowledge areas. The other ones are supporting, but also even important. Still no questions. Ooh. That's good. Underlying competencies. Ah, yes. One second.
Is it possible for business analysts to work as a freelancer? If yes, any specific suggestion for this career path?
Okay, let's park this question till later in this session, maybe at the end, the Q&A sessions. Yes, okay, because that's not really 100% about the BABOK, but it's always an interesting question.
So we can answer the question. Stefan is freelance, I'm employee, so we can discuss about that.
And we both have a lot of fun doing business analysis. Sometimes not with each other, but together. Yes. Okay. Underlying competencies, which is chapter 10 or 11. Those are the 6 divisions. And I'll go through each of them quickly. But having worked for 30 years, not always in the BA role, but also functionalist and even the developer. I started even development. Right? Having worked more than 30 years, but in more than 20 different industries, I can tell you that the easiest to acquire is business knowledge. That's the easiest to acquire. And a lot of, and I've been interviewed in so many industries as well, like, no, we want to have someone with that and that experience. And as we said earlier, it's BS. It's BS. It's a good BA has the skills to learn a new business domain quite easily, because one of the things that are on the online and like thinking, problem solving, behavior characteristics, we need to be adaptable, very adaptable. We have to be also very good learners. Okay. The next easy to learn is tools and technology. What is much more difficult to learn, if you're not analytical, don't become a BA. Don't become a functionalist, don't become a technicalist, don't become an analyst. So analytical is something you acquire when you're a kid. After 15 years, the age of 15, it's very difficult to acquire analytical thinking. It's almost impossible. That's psychology. So some of the things you can't acquire, you have or you don't have around your age of 20, let's say. And some of them are very easy to acquire. And business knowledge and tools and technology are quite easy to acquire. So analytical thinking and problem solving, you have this already in your head or in you yourself at the age of 15, or you don't. This is something you can't learn. if you're not analytical, you can learn about system thinking. If you're not analytical, don't even start doing system thinking. It won't work. That's my humble opinion. Communication skills. Communication skills you have at a certain level, you still can learn something about it. But you have people that are born communicators and people that have learned at a later age. I'm one of them. I learned communicating at an age of 30, business-wise. So you don't have to have that at your 50. Just saying. But negotiating, conflict resolution is something you also can kind of learn, teaching. But still, you see that it's not easy to acquire those skills. So the soft skills are very hard to acquire, soft and hard. And then behavioral, ethical. You're ethical, or you fake it maybe. But even if you fake it at a certain moment, truth lasts the longest. Yeah, lasts the longest. That kind of adaptability, as I said, this is very, very important skill or competency. And then business knowledge, and then you have tools like technology. Yeah. And then perspectives. I'll go very brief through it. And that was a very good idea of the BABOK, but IIBA has done nothing about it afterwards. It's a way, it's using the tasks in the BABOK from a certain context, a perspective. And they had IT, agile, business intelligence, business architecture, business process management. The competency model that was there in 2011, they said that, for example, business architecture, it's a specialization of business analysis. They didn't do that in the next competency model, but I agree with that because it's creating better business outcomes. So all these perspectives have to do with creating better business outcomes. For me, that's a specialization of business analysis, but they call it perspectives in the BABOK version 3. And it says like, yeah, well, they take a subset of a number of tasks and they say like, you use it in this or that context. It's interesting. It's interesting. And I would recommend you to go through it. You don't need to know the knowledge areas in depth. Go through it and you learn to understand a bit about business process analysis and about business architecture. It's a nice introduction. And there we are. So the question that we had earlier about freelance, and that is something we do at the end, maybe. But any other questions about the introduction of the BABOK? No? Okay. Then I'm going to hand the microphone to Robin and put on the PowerPoint presentation of the last one.
Yeah. Thank you, Stefan. Good time boxing, by the way. You're right on the mark. Well, so this was a bit of an introduction into the BABOK itself to get you curious about it, get to want to join the BABOK study group. Now we'll need to sell the BABOK study group to each and everyone if you're actually wanting to join. Coming? Yeah, of course. I'll take it and I'll give it back and I'll take it back and so on. So the study group. Let me start with the oldest slide we have made by our own Stefan. Oldest slide, it serves already for about 7 years. So your mission, should you choose to accept it, can be found in the following slides. And it will not self-destruct. Original joke by our Stefan. Well, before going into the case, let me actually, Stefan, may I invite you to become my microphone stand? That's the subject, the BABOK. Now, if you look at it like, I'm looking at the mic. If you look at it like that, it can be quite scary. I hope the people at home can see it as well. But let me make it a bit simpler. So where does it actually start? Table of content, introduction. There's the introduction part, business analysis, key concepts, key terms. 3, the first knowledge area. BA planning and monitoring. Okay. 6 knowledge areas. Up until where does it go? Tools. Oh, further. So I hope it's visible. I hope I'm not destroying someone's BABOK here. Sorry, Giovanna. So the part I'm holding up here, that's actually the 6 knowledge areas. This will be the subject of the BABOK study group. All the rest, that's underlying competencies, which Stefan mentioned. And oops, and as of here already, let's take it. Is it still okay with your arm?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, just checking. Sorry, I'm from Limburg. Sometimes it takes a bit of time. Here, techniques. There you go. Voila. And then there is the part on perspective. It's somewhere here in between. Let's call this part the perspective part. So we will not deal with that in the BABOK study group, actually. So I hope everyone's already a lot less afraid now. Oh, thanks. So the case, we'll work around the case. So I guess you already understood, Stefan and I, we can talk for hours and hours and hours and hours about business analysis. That's not the aim, actually. The aim is that you learn something, and you don't do that by listening the entire time to someone. We will speak quite a lot, of course. We will present the different knowledge areas, but what we'll actually do is work around the case. And already in the first session, voilà, we will all decide on one single imaginary case, and that we'll use throughout all the 7 following sessions with the teams. And you'll use that case to demonstrate your understanding, your team's understanding of the different knowledge areas of the BABOK. We do have some constraints, some conditions. So we want it to be something sustainable, and it must be a business-oriented topic, not an IT topic. The worst thing I always hear as a business analyst is someone coming up to me and saying, "Hey, Robin, we need an Excel that does this or that." It drives me crazy. So it's not purely IT-oriented. We're going to make it business-oriented. Yeah, and why also an imaginary case? Yeah, it's not to favor anyone. So if you decide if you want to use your case, that's a project you're already working on. That's not quite fair. So, and also we want to invite you to put yourself in the shoes of the different stakeholders, of the business stakeholders, and also potential non-disclosure issues, of course, that may arise. Well, practical setting, we will divide the group up in teams, obviously. 5 to 6 persons, it depends on the number of participants. How are we going to divide the groups? Well, you'll notice that in the very first session, which is a physical session, I think. An in-person session, sorry. So,
you really have to take your training shoes with you and then a jogging jumpsuit because it can be very intensive.
Not so much for the younger people. Okay. No. Of course, it's a joke. So first session, we'll meet each other, present each other to each other. You can decide on a team name. Once you're decided into a group, you can change phone numbers, emails, whatever you want. And you're already going to set up your first team meeting already at that session. And be aware, because it's a very short time frame for the study group, of course. In terms of collaboration, yeah, we do offer, if you want, a Slack channel. So with the IIBA, we have a Slack, and there we can invite you to join us, and then we can share information, reply to your questions you will most definitely have. Voilà. You can also collaborate, centralize information together with your teammates. It's something we offer. We invite everyone to join. If you want to choose something else, fine by us. Okay. A WhatsApp group can always be convenient, of course.
The Slack is maybe not 100% voluntary because we do a lot of sometimes some communication through the Slack. So you don't have to use it within your team. You can use another communication because some people are working in the same company and then they use, for example, Teams. For example, but we do recommend to have your Slack. You don't have to install an app. You can do it in a browser, but we do sometimes communicate from out of the organization through Slack.
And there, it's also where we share the slides, any recordings, and so on. The assignment. So in the following 7 sessions, well, it's actually 8 sessions, or am I mistaken? Voila, the first session and the following 7 sessions. So there are going to be 6 sessions, 1 per knowledge area. So how does it start? First session, Stefan and I will give an overview of the first knowledge area. We'll attack a bit the theoretical part, but we'll make it quite tangible, quite understandable. You will notice in the beginning, you might find it a bit flu. How we approach it, you might not be 100% clear already what's expected in the first case, but that's a bit part of the journey. We are not going to give you any examples of how other groups have done it. You need to come up yourself with an approach, because that's the only way we're going to invite you. We can make sure that you actually think about the case and about the different knowledge areas.
Well, this year will be the first year we're going to give a tiny example, which is very theoretical, to, this will be the first year. So,
but it will more be of a teaser, let's call it like that.
And not from a previous BABOK study group.
Indeed, it will be something homegrown. Voilà. So the theoretical part, and then let's say in the second session, then again, first part is you, the different teams, are going to present the case. You're going to present how you approached the knowledge area, how you went through the different tasks using your case. Presentation, 10, 15 minutes max, depends on the size of the teams and so on, of course. But we want everyone to contribute. So each and every team member must speak. That's something important. And then we also invite the teams to ask questions to one another, challenge one another. In the beginning, the teams don't really challenge each other, but no worries. We have the 2 of us. We have Christophe, who just actually left. There will be Joanna, there will be Bart. So plenty of opportunities to do that. And then at the end, the very last session, there we're going to do something different. There we're going to ask you not to talk about how you approached one knowledge area. There we're going to ask you to take another step back, to take another higher perspective. What is the red line? How did you, throughout your case, browse through the different knowledge areas? How do you went from point A to point B to point C and so on? It's not always that straightforward, actually, but you'll see that. So what we ask per knowledge area, per task with regard to the case, you describe the inputs and the outputs. Very important notions. What have you taken in consideration? What have you not taken into consideration? Why? What are the outputs you produced? Why? Which techniques have you used? Okay, you need to demonstrate a bit through a technique, but we're not going to ask you to do some very elaborate exercise demonstrating a given technique. No, that's not the idea. It's just supposed to serve as an example, to make your approach tangible. So we're not going to ask you to do an entire business analysis, obviously, for the entire scope of the case. It would be a bit too much, of course. And why? You mentioned why again. We mentioned why a lot. Again, can be different from the one in the BABOK. Which stakeholders were involved? Why? Why certainly not. So, but again, not exhaustive, because the presentation time is limited.
About the techniques, we're not going to ask you an in-depth description of the technique used. Also in the BABOK, when you go through the chapter of the techniques, you see it's like, it's very high level. Well, it's only to explain what is the technique about, a little bit. And we only want to know why you use that technique. For that, you have to tell a bit about the technique, otherwise you can't say why. But that's basically it. And you can maybe a fake process diagram, which is not even representing your, but it's not the purpose to go in depth into a technique. It's only we understand that you understand the technique and that you know why you're using it for that given task in your case.
We should start a counter how often we say and we ask why, Stefan. We'd be curious. We want to ask about your understanding, so of the global view of the different knowledge areas. We actually do not care about your understanding of the business analysis techniques. Sorry. So this is not a place where you are going to learn business analysis techniques. Okay, you might learn a couple of new ones, but this is for us not the aim. You can give guidance, advice, whatever you want, but that's not the purpose, that's not the goal. Global view of the different knowledge areas, and especially the relationships between tasks. The relationships between the tasks, the moment you understand that, you have a view of the big picture, That's when in your career, in your work, in a business analyst role, you will definitely be able to help achieve better business outcomes. And you will be much better at asking very annoying questions to stakeholders. That's it. Again, not exhaustive. Now, this can become confusing. Why do we say this? Well, inputs of tasks, there are often outputs of other tasks you've already done. Man, makes total sense. It can be within the same knowledge area, but also from other different knowledge areas. And some inputs are sometimes not outputs of not other tasks. So this may seem a bit idiotic. I want to go to the next one. Okay, but it can be a challenge.
For example, remember the knowledge areas, requirements analysis, design definition, and then you're going to manage their structure and so on. But then you have solution evaluation. And the input of a number of tasks of solution evaluation is the existing solution. But what happens? There's no task that gives output of a solution. But because what happens, we build requirements, solution requirements, and then there's a project drawing up a solution, which is outside the scope of the BABOK. But once we have the solution, we want to measure it, solution evaluation. So that's an example.
Thank you. So caution can be a challenge. Why is this a challenge? That's why. This is actually the output of one of the former participants, Dries. And what he has actually done, as part of this final presentation, he made the links between the different tasks. We've never seen this. This is actually the first time I have seen it. So believe it or not, this is not only what you'll be able to do at the end of the BABOK study group, you'll actually be able to understand all of this. Believe it or not. And this can be scary, but each and every year, each and every final presentation of each and every group, one way or another, each group is able to demonstrate they actually do have an understanding of the BABOK and the different relationships between the tasks and the knowledge areas.
Of course, in your case, we're not going to, we didn't rehearse this, huh? We haven't spoken each other for quite a long, at lunchtime on the telephone, just, we didn't rehearse it, but yeah. We're not going in the helicopter view session, ask you to describe all the relationships. No, we want to see how you jumped from one knowledge area to the other and some important ones maybe, but that's it. Because you won't have the time to go through all of them, that's for sure.
Indeed. Now I do realize, now I might have scared some people off, but you shouldn't be. Just remember, knowledge areas, this small part of the BABOK, not much. So time in between the sessions is short. The different sessions, when we plan them, this is available on our website on the registration page. If you have any other questions, just ask. So that means you need to plan wisely. And in the work you're going to do, don't be too exhaustive. Just demonstrate your understanding, not too much in depth on how this technique and this and that works. Will interrupt you when you present, actually, when you're going into too much detail or to manage that.
So the time in between sessions is minimum 3, maximum 4 weeks. And it's very, very short because we have planned our sessions outside the vacations of Brussels and Flanders, not Wallonia, sorry. We can't cover. Yeah, it's a business analysis on its own. So you have to plan it very, very thoughtfully. And as we said, again, demonstrate your understanding, not your in-depth knowledge of techniques. That's very important.
And that was it.
The registration page, Bart, what's the status of that? It's in draft, okay. So the dates of the sessions will be at the registrations page once it's live. But we will inform certainly the participants of this session through email. Also from home, people that have registered, we will inform. And if you want to have more knowledge, subscribe you to our mailing list or follow our LinkedIn chapter page. So now we are coming to the third part. First, any questions about the approach before we have Joanna? Yes. Okay.
So the first question is perspective same as context?
Good question. I like that one. I like that one. So in a certain perspective, it is. it now a perspective is you know the vantage point that Robin just mentioned. In fact, the perspective is the vantage point of, for example, a business architect on the BABOK. So which tasks and which tasks will he rather use or techniques than, for example, a BI, business intelligence analyst? So that's a perspective. It's a kind of vantage point, a perspective on the BABOK from that role. Whereas a context is much broader. It's maybe a context on how to apply the tasks. That might be a perspective, but the context is much more. So, yeah.
Another example you might take is, okay, let's make it concrete. If I take an example, some mobile app. So needs to be analyzed, needs to be developed one way or another. And how are you going to look at it? You can look at it from the perspective of, let's say, the company that actually bringing it out. You can look at it at the perspective of an end user. You can look at it at the perspective of some type of user. You can have different user roles in an app, for example. So those are different perspectives you can take. Now, context, as Stefan mentioned, it's a lot broader. There you're actually going to look from a person, as the way I see it, in a certain perspective. Why is this relevant? Why is this important? What could happen if I put myself in a perspective in different contexts? What will happen? So it's actually rather abstract, I would say. Well, that's about it. What I can add about it. Now, if you want to complete it.
No. Well done. Well done.
What's the time frame for the study group, and also of the how online participants can form the group?
Okay. The timeline, it starts somewhere at the end of January 20. I don't know the dates by heart. The 23rd or something. It's always on a Tuesday or on a Thursday. The first and the last session is in evenings. Yeah. The first and last session is in person. So we don't have online participants at all, which we mentioned also in the registration page for this evening today. So it's mentioned the first and the last session is in person. The first, so building the team, you can't do that from home. That's we don't allow. In fact, the online sessions have started through COVID. We plan to do it in person the whole series, and the first year we did. First year at RISIF we did once. The second year, it was already to 2019, 2020 was the second. So we had one session in person, already a few people coughing. and then COVID broke out and we did everything online, even the last session. The next year, some rules were more flexible and we said, okay, we decided the first and last session. The first to get the teams, to get to know each other, to know the people with whom you're going to have a team. And then the last session to celebrate your achievement, the helicopter view, and then have a drink afterwards, a little party. So I think that answers the question. There's no team building from home.
Then, given the BABOK version 3 was released in 2015, is there any expected release for version 4?
Well, there's a lot of mystery on that. I know some inside information, not about the dates, but why it has taken that long, which I can't really disclose, sadly. It's not going to happen anytime soon. But what I can tell you is that the BABOK version 3 launched in 2015, as just mentioned. In 2016, they had the first business analysis core standard, which was in fact an extract of the BABOK. So the BA standard, as we know, as you can find for free on the website of IBA. It's a subset with a few add-ons of the BABOK. And in fact, they want to evolve the BA standard and build a new BABOK version for out of the new the updated BA standard. That's the intent. Of what I've seen, I don't see it happen, but that's my personal opinion. Sorry.
Is there also an Amsterdam chapter?
There is a Dutch chapter, not an Amsterdam chapter. There's a Dutch chapter with whom we have very good connections with. You can go on dutch.iiba.org and see they also have a BABOK study group. So yeah, there's a chapter in the Netherlands, and it's almost as old as ours. We are only a few months older. I've been to the launch of the Dutch chapter in 2010.
Can you please help to share any authorized from IIBA Institute for one online CBAP training? Authorized institute, yeah.
The education endorsed education providers of IIBA. We have one in Belgium, which is 2 already. Okay. But the easiest is you go on the website of IIBA.org. There you select the region. You go to endorsed education provider, the region, and then you can find them. But we do also know quite a few interesting ones that do online in the United States and even in Australia, which are pretty good. Because you need to have some PDs, product professional developments, to be able to participate to an exam. Although for the ECBA, they scrapped that, I think something.
Be aware, endorsed training or education providers. So you have 2 types. You have the type that actually actively prepare you for the certification exams, and that there are a few, even a Belgian one, that does not have a clear trajectory. Okay, this is what you need to do to get certified. No, they actually just provide business analyst trainings, different topics that meet the standards of BABOK of IIBA. And then you have enough professional development units to get started with the exam to be eligible. So it depends on what you want. Do you want to know and understand the BABOK and afterwards certify yourself? Or do you really want to push for training with the sole purpose of certification? So there are 2 flavors.
Many of those endorsed education providers, their training of the BABOK is really go through the knowledge areas, and it's a theory. And what we want to do is help you to understand. Remember, you had some mathematicals when you were in secondary school or even high school or university for those who went there. So you had the practical exercises, and very often the practical exercises, you learn to understand more the theorems and so on and so on. In fact, that's the same what we do. We want you to help to understand the BABOK, specific the knowledge areas, little part, by applying the tasks of those knowledge areas onto your task, and then understand how, therefore, we need that task. And trust me, people understand why you need that or that task. It doesn't come with the first session, but we see people evolving and challenging tasks. So like, yeah, there's a little flaw. There are a few flaws in the BABOK, by the way. But it's interesting to see how people evolve, and it's fun. It's also fun and rewarding for us because we do it already for 7 years, and it's very rewarding. We keep on doing this for the 7th and probably 8th, maybe not for 9th and 10th, but that's another story. Those were the questions up till now, besides the freelance one, but that's the freelance question. But we would like to invite...
Any useful sources having exercises to practice the 50 BABOK techniques?
Nope. No, not really.
The 50 techniques, yeah, the BABOK study group, joining it, that might help a bit. There are some resources on IIBA.org. You have some sample questions, actually, of the certification exams. There are also a number of online providers that actually also ask theoretical questions, multiple choice, or to prepare you for the certification exam. There are actually very few that provide the real interactive experience, meaning you can contact a trainer, a coach, or something like that with a question, or you actually need to produce an exercise. I actually only know of one that actually does it, but it's not an exam preparation course.
And also they are not doing, for example, the exams is not on how to apply techniques, is how the BABOK is organized, how you apply it on the case. So this is a good preparation for the CCBA and the CBAP. It might be overkill for the ECBA, though I really believe you want to study an exam of the ECBA, it's better to understand the BABOK. It will be much easier to prepare yourself for the exam afterwards.
If you have the ECBA, entry-level certificate in business analysis, it's rather theoretical. So it's a bit like in, let's call it in high school and college, you need to remember and understood what you read. But if you go up higher, if you have a higher experience level, being it the CCBA or the CBAP, there you will actually need to demonstrate your understanding of the BABOK and the techniques. And it will push you, actually. I think both Stefan and Bart can testify on that. You really need to understand why you are doing something. You won't be asked any literal questions. You will work on cases. So, and this is also what the BABOK study group is useful for. If that's your objective to get certified, perfectly, no problem. We welcome it. But it will especially help you to understand why. And that's where I think the added value in the thing we do lies.
But to reply to the question, some areas to train on the techniques. There are schools, day schools, evening schools, also in Belgium, that do work on techniques. We don't have a list for that. That's outside the scope of we do have connections with a few people that teach in there, but that's it. Like Philip de Sutter, for example, teaches also business analysis.
There's also IRAP. They actually have a standard certification, even requirements engineering, and that goes more into techniques. That's a bit more tangible. However, they don't really have a lot of exercises, but that book, that course is a bit more tangible, I think, when it comes to techniques than our course.
We have a good connection with the people from IIBA, by the way, and it's complementary. It's more also focused on the solution area, much less on the, so that's the requirements analyst. Well, will be very happy with the IRIP because that's the area where IRIP is focusing on. Although there are a lot of people doing IRIP that are already broader thinking.
If you're especially interested in different business analysis techniques, BCS, they launched quite a few books over the years. So BCS, British Computer Society. I think the first book they had was, it was like 50 business analysis techniques, 72, then 100, and now they're at 100. Huh? Yeah, 100. That's the last one. They actually evolved. So there's that, BCS, and there was something else, I think. Yeah, that's about it. Though.
I have the 1, 2, 3, and the description of techniques is not much more in depth than the one of the BABOK.
And if you one alternative we can recommend, should you choose not to join the BABOK study group, but you must, you should, definitely. Well, both Stefan and I, we have a favorite book and a favorite pair, couple of business analysts. Yep, it's Mastering the Requirements Process by James and Suzanne Robertson. It's a book like this big. They have their 4th version launched now, I think, or 3rd, I forgot. But that's a very good alternative. So it's not a true standard, but it's a very good work if you're interested in either requirements engineering, requirements management, or even business analysis.
In fact, for me, because the title of the book is Mastering the Requirements Process. The only thing well, it's a process, it's a kind of methodology. It's a methodology. They don't like it because we know them personally. They don't like to call it methodology, but it is. The only thing that I don't like, I've told them many times, is why did you put it in Mastering the Requirements Process? Because requirements are a means to an end. That's the only disadvantage, but it's a methodology and it works.
And what we actually offer is more of a framework, a toolbox that you'll understand to use efficiently. We'll teach you when to use a hammer and when you need a vice to turn to fix a screw. That's what you will learn with us. We will learn you not to use a hammer in the inappropriate cases.
And by the way, the Mastering the Requirements Process, the Volere, they also call it, it's BABOK compliant. Other questions? So we explain and people ask more questions. So
are all knowledge areas needs to be followed in a sequential order, or business analysis can be started from any knowledge area?
in theory, it's the latter, in theory. But as one of the slides has shown, you always start with measuring, solution evaluation, or with understanding the why in the strategy analysis, like the as-is situation and the current situation on investigating. That's where you mostly start. But as of then, yeah, we start even with planning and monitoring, which is not even one of those two. Because with planning and monitoring, you are going to understand what is this organization? What are the stakeholders we're working at? And how do we engage? How do we approach them? And that kind of stuff. So that's what we start with. So, and we have already changed sequence of knowledge areas twice, 2 or 3 times to test it out. We are now happy with the current order, the sequence that I mentioned, showed during the presentation. We're happy with it, but I could change one more time. We discuss it. We're not going to do it. But yeah, that's always the pitfall. And I want to come back to something that Robin says, like, first you go through the knowledge. So we have 8 sessions. The first one is the case, the teams, and blah, blah, blah. 6 knowledge areas, the helicopter view. When I do business analysis, I start with a helicopter view, and then I go in depth. But that would be too complicated because you don't understand the knowledge areas, and then starting with a helicopter view, that would be too complicated. So we do it an upside down approach, but we see it works. People get more mature about understanding the knowledge areas, how the BABOK is structured, and so on and so on. And then they are very well capable in giving that helicopter view.
Yes, hopefully Joanna will testify.
Okay, other questions? Other questions? No. Then we will invite Joanna here. And Bart, can you take over the Q&A? Oh, yeah, the dates will follow. The dates will follow. So it starts 20 something in January and it ends 28 or something in June. Yes. They said inquire. Huh? Okay. And then we're going to invite Joanna up to stage. And she has participated in 2019. And 2019, which was the very first one, which was a bit maybe chaotic because we also had to find out. But we'll let her talk.
Yes. So I enjoyed 2 study groups in 2019 and the last one. Maybe I will tell how I started to work in IT. So I started to work in IT in 2014 from subject matter expert role from accountancy. And I did some testing, functional analysis, but also in different companies. I was working as vulnerability manager, process analyst. So yeah, very small tasks. but not really on the whole of the project. And with the study group, I could see in 2019 how the project is composed. I receive clear overview on whole the project, on all the tools. It was a little bit chaotic indeed. But it was good because we were working not individual, so we didn't have to. I didn't have to present the task by myself, but it was whole the group. So it was easy for me at that point. And still, I could see how the whole project is working from pre-project analysis to delivery of the project. And then since that, I could participate in the projects, and I started to work as a business architect in one company. And the way of approach of the projects from the business architect point of view is totally different. So I wanted to challenge the techniques that we are using also for requirement analysis, for example. So that's why I decided to participate in the last study group. Yeah, the tasks that I have to had to prepare, I did it a little bit different than BABOK. So I made information models for requirements analysis, which allowed me to test different ways of approach. But also it was very nice because working in the group, it was challenging because we had different tests, all of us. And still we had to align and work together and present together. So yeah, the last one, it was a very nice one. Yeah, what I can say from the last experience, don't take the tasks and don't use the tools that you already know, because it's very safe area to experience between all of you, and it's also not paid company challenging area, so you can make mistakes very and learn from them without the stress which is in the company environment. The other one was, the team, working in the team, because it was always at home. Only the first and the last session was live. And yeah, the way of alignment, but also the slides, preparation of the slides, it was quite challenging for us. So yeah. Yeah, I think it was a little bit.
Stay on stage. So the very first session that Joanna participated in, we had about 45 participants, and it was growing pain. We were doing it agile. We were very agile, and luckily people dropped out, because with 40 people it's not workable. And we have learned already from the first year that we can't come up with more than 20. So there will be a maximum of 20 participants and 3 teams. That's a maximum. So if people would register and it will over the 20, they will become, because we know the order that people have registered, they may be backup, but it's after payment that your registration is complete. And something else, the BABOK study group is a safe environment, and not safe in the Scrum approach, but safe in the approach that we have to learn. Each of us have to learn. And trust me, Rob and I, we still learn every year again and again from the BABOK. That's why we're still doing it also. And it's also rewarding to see people grow. And it's a safe environment. You can and will make mistakes, but you can't learn without making mistakes. You get up, continue. And a question, was it still that chaotic the last year?
No, it was not chaotic. It was because everybody had a different task, maybe something else, something more. It was quite difficult, motivating, difficult to find motivation to align together.
That's a good one, and I'm glad you're here.
But it was a nice lesson, of course, huh? Because it was better and better every time, and we were like, yeah, exercising too much with each other, and
because as I see, tasks have input, output. Output is the input for another task. So if, for example, Joanna is doing task A, and I'm doing the other task B, and I need output from her, but she's still working on it, we have to already agree that's the kind of output I will give, and then I can do my stuff. So the organization, the first session, it will be probably not that great. No? It can be great, right? Challenge us, but it might not be that great, but you learn from that. So you have already to agree, take the tasks as black box, see input outputs that depend on each other, and agree with that before you go into the contents of a task.
To find a project.
Yes, to find a case, but that's something we're going to solve from the beginning. But again, it was the case they came up with last year was not always that easy to apply all the tasks. They didn't find it that easy. I had my own ideas, but that's from a different perspective. Vantage point. Other questions?
So we have a question from Muhammad. He's an MBA in finance. He has 10 years of commercial spend analysis working experience. And he requests, or he asks, is it recommended to go for a CBAP or something else?
Something else. No, just kidding. First of all, the CCBA and the CBAP are experience-based. So you have to demonstrate so many years of experience on the different knowledge areas. So if you haven't done enough business analysis in the last 5 to 7 years, you won't be able to start your exam of CBAP. So you need to fill out an application. We have on the YouTube channel one session that I explained how to fill out how you can calculate the number of hours that you've done and so on and so on. And if you are everyone's interested, do go for a CCBA or a CBAP. Look at that video. There is in the link in the text with a template, an Excel template to do your calculation. And if I can recommend, go for CBAP. Wait maybe 1 or 2 years to get enough. Don't go for a CCBA. They don't have a migration path from CCBA to CBAP. And you have to do the exam again and so on and so on. It seems there is one, but it's not officially. And I would go for the CBAP. I would go for it. Even wait a year to get some more experience so that you can apply. The exam is not more difficult. The one is case-based and the other one is scenario-based. If you complete our session, our study group, I think you'll manage to do both. Other questions? Joanna, something else to mention?
What time does it take in between sessions to work together to prepare, I think, for the presentations?
Yeah. I'm going to give the mic. I'm going to give the mic to Joanna. I'll tell you up front, it's not a walk in the park. It's demanding. So the sessions are each time 2 hours and a half, 3 hours, somewhere in between. for 6 sessions. The first session, you also have a drink after, like we have today, for example. And the last session is also a bit longer, but not active. It's also enjoying and networking. But it's not a walk in the park. But if you prepare for an exam, Bart knows, I know, you also spend a lot of hours. And I would have preferred to have done the BABOK study before I started preparing, I can tell you, because then I understood the BABOK. It would have been much easier to prepare for the exam.
So we are looking a little bit for approach because the first session was very bad. First delivery was very bad for our group. We were not happy. But we started to meet directly after the meeting together with Stefan and Robin when we had a task, the tasks, and then the last meeting also together with all the group before the delivery, and then in between just with 2-3 persons. So not all of us, but just to give further the task actually, or to exercise.
I can recommend to indeed meet ASAP after the session. We give a session, and at the end of the session, we introduce the next knowledge area, high level. I would recommend to meet as soon as possible afterwards. Do your exchange, meet somewhere in the middle, and then at the last, before the session, do the whole presentation together. That's something a lot of groups, teams, last year, the year before, didn't always do. They end up doing a presentation of half an hour. We don't have that time. So prepare it so that you can see it's a whole. It's not a part of. Make your slides a bit more compatible with each other, that there's the same look and feel. Make some effort in the presentation. We see people evolve also in presentation skills. It's also wonderful to see. But make sure it has one storyline. And therefore, you need to sit together even before the next session. Does that answer your question? Kind of. But in hours.
If you want to express it in hours, it depends on team to team. I would say, Rona, would 1 hour a week suffice? Probably, maybe just not.
So you work on a team, but each and everyone on a separate task. So you work individually on a.
It's your approach. It's how you choose it. I think that's the most logical approach, what you just say. Yeah, it's the most, but you have to agree upon the ins and outs between the tasks. That's something. So you have to agree who does which task, the relationship between the task with the inputs and the outputs, or the outputs that are become inputs. That's something you have to agree upon, and then you have to make sure you have one story. And sometimes you come up with a template of the organization. But besides writing your task or the techniques, and then you also have to read a bit the knowledge area, because we only give a brief introduction, and you have to understand especially the task that you're going to complete. But it might be a good idea to read the whole knowledge area. It's about 10, 15 pages, and then, but you do also have to spend some time on that.
In the first and the last meeting, it was mostly with 2 persons, because you work on something, you give this to the other person, and then the other person gives to the other person, and then the last meeting align together and delivery.
And allows you to understand the why of each other. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And those are things both Stefan, I, and other people are really, really drilled in asking that question. So that's one of the expectations.
And I also think from what my colleagues who've done the study group in the previous years, what they've said is that it really takes some time. If you want to understand the whole concept, you need to read the rest of the text, put some extra effort into it. But what I'm trying, because earlier we said, okay, it's to understand the BABOK and to understand the method, the framework. But my objective would be both to be certified and to understand, because, well, of course, I'm trying to be here to be a business analyst. How, maybe that's also quite a difficult question, but how much effort do I need to put into the study outside of the study group to have really a good preparation without doing an extra course? Is it just reading the book, and is it just doing the course, doing the study group? Is that enough, or do we need to put in extra hours and even go deeper into topics by ourselves afterwards to have a certification or however?
Depends on the certification. Is it if it if it's the IIBA entry level certificate, you won't need to spend a lot of additional time. You don't need to spend time. Obviously, it's an exam preparation. You need to know and understand the BABOK. Also, each certification level has a different focus point. Right? So sometimes, for example, it's 30% in that knowledge area, 40% in that one. I'm just saying something. If you go to a CBAP, there it's a bit different, of course. If you're going to go for a CCBA, which I would recommend, or CBAP, then it's different. Then you actually need tangible work experience in order to pass it. You can study as much as you want. If you don't have the tangible work experience, you won't pass. I'm not going to say the official required. If you don't have the practical experience, you won't pass it. So it really depends on the level you want to attain. If it's the CBAP, you will need to spend some actual time performing business analysis. But if you understand the BABOK, that will become a lot easier getting there. So difficult to quantify. It also depends on individual to individual.
We have to come up with a wrap up, but I have a question for you. I would ask queue up in a line, get up in a line, please. In front of the camera. This is new. We haven't done that the previous years. Okay, so this is Dirk. You have 20 seconds. Why are you here?
To learn more about how the BABOK works and how I can use those techniques in current and upcoming projects.
Okay, next. Okay, how is that pronounced? Lali. Why are you here?
I'm here because I recently started an evening class in business analysis, and I wanted to gain more information about it.
Cool, thank you. Next one. Yes, Natya. Why are you here?
Yeah, I have already worked as test automation engineer in my previous years. So I'm much interested in knowing more about the process and business management, and hoping that I would get to know some practical stories in this session, more about the business analysis rather than just theoretical stuff. So just join. Yeah.
And people at home can put in the chat also why, and we will read a few of them. Barta, won't we? Yeah. Okay, well, even we are lined up. Okay, so Marika, why are you here?
Yeah, I'm here because I was curious about how the sessions or the study group would how it works and what's covered in the sessions. So I have a clear view, I think, now.
Thank you. Next. Srinivas. Okay, sorry. Why are you here? Sorry.
Yeah, basically, I'm just looking for my certification in CBAP. That is one thing that I'm looking in. So the study group will be the one guideline for me to just achieve my certification. That is what I wanted to do here. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. And then we have the last from the in-person. This Benjamin.
Because I want to become a business analyst.
Whoa, very interesting. Now we're going to go to the online replies, although the people online, they already see in the chat what the answers are. Who here has already decided that he or she or they will attend and participate to the BABOK study group? Okay, nice. Yeah, pending approval. Okay, so we're going to the home, so we don't read the chat here. Are there some interesting to read?
So I have Elisaveta. who is saying that she is here to study BABOK with BAs outside of my daily circle of connections and use this group as a preparation step for CBAP. Wink. I don't know what the wink means, but Elisaveta, can you indicate in the chat if you will join us? So, and we have then Raf de Koolman. I'm here to get business analysis from my head, as in understanding, to my belly, living it. That's a nice one. Yeah, I put a heart on it. That's a good one. And Elisaveta said she wants to join if it fits her schedule. So we need to get this schedule out as soon as possible, of course. Then we have Alex, who will attend, but we will hope to join the Dutch version. Okay, then I have Vahid Vaisi. I hope I pronounce your name right. I'm here to practice business analysis more and more as I'm in the middle of my CBAP training. My main drive is to combine my project management and agile experience with business analysis knowledge. And then we have Wart, who's saying, I'm already working many years as an analyst, mainly based on common sense, and want to take this to a next level with practical tools, tips, tricks, experiences from other people. We have Emmanuel, who's saying, I'm considering having business analysis skills to broaden my IT background. Okay. We have Arnella, who says, already being a CBAP, but I think that I can definitely gain additional knowledge in this study from different perspectives and in this context. Thank you very much, she says. Then we have Ali, the last one for now. The BABOK study guide is very text heavy and overly elaborated, dragged. But so I want to join this group to grasp the concept in an interactive way. So that's a good reason also. Yeah, very good. That's it.
So now, who from people at home, you can use in Zoom your controls. Put a thumb up if you intend to attend the BABOK study group. Please. Depending on, because the 2 in-person sessions, yeah. Okay, while they're searching for the button, there was still one question not answered. Freelance. Well, as we said earlier, we're both having fun. I think it doesn't make any difference. In the freelance, you can sometimes choose easier your own project, but in some companies, there's also some possibilities to choose for your project, a bit more difficult. But as a freelance, you have the insecurity and so on. So it's like, what you intend to do? I'm having a lot of fun, but I can tell you I had a few rough years. Finding an appropriate assignment that of people thinking at the same time. And even when I was a customer and we agreed upon the working method, someone else came in between and says like, I want to have work totally different, and which was not like I wanted. So I had that a few times. So that's my experience. I had a few rough years, but currently the last few years, I'm having a lot of fun.
Well, I actually think it doesn't really make a difference whether you're an independent contractor or an employee. I think the real difference is, are you working as an external, as a consultant? Let's call it like that. So if you enter somewhere in a company as a consultant, a lot of business analysts are consultants. Most people present here, and I assume also online, are working in the consulting industry, quite probably. So as a consultant, you always enter with an external view on things. And of course, there are also a lot of business analysts that work as payroll, as employees within a given company, and they have the role of business analyst there. They're actually performing the same work. basically. They're performing the same work. However, there, I think that personally the difference is if you enter somewhere as a consultant, you tend to behave a bit differently because you're outside of the hierarchical structure and can ask even a bit more annoying questions from time to time. But other than that, practically, tangibly, when it comes down to the work to be done, it doesn't really make that much of a difference. I do agree, however, with the view on you're a bit more free in choosing the type of projects, endeavors you're going to undertake, while in certain companies, if you work as an employee there, it's much more limited depending on the activity of your company.
And if you are very engaged to learn different business domains, it's as a consultant as well as a freelance or employee. As a consultant, you will have more opportunities to go through different business domains, and I can recommend that because if you stay in the same business domain as a business analyst, very often you're bombarded to a domain subject matter expert after some time. You don't want to do that. Well, I wouldn't want to do that, and you get your blind spots. Being in one business domain, you get your blind spots, and that's very, very rough to get rid of them.
Maybe when you are consultant, and because I'm working also as freelance, big difference is if you don't have experience in networking, don't start it yet. Really, it's very important because you still want to learn, you still have to share the knowledge, to gain the knowledge, other practical knowledge from another consultants. And if you are not working for the company as consultant, it's very difficult as freelance. So.
Okay. I hope that answers the question. Bart, are there still more questions? Otherwise, we're going to wrap up. Okay. I thank everyone here for being here in person, and we're going to have a little drink, maybe still a sandwich if people want to. People from home, thanks for being here. Thanks for your interesting questions, and I'm looking forward to the people participating. We will keep you informed when the registration page will be online. That will be surely next week for sure. I think next week it will be there for sure. Fine-tuning the dates will be then also released. People that attended from home, registered or here, will get an email with the slides and the registration page. We're not going to send you an email before we have a registration page. People from home, when you register registration page, follow us on LinkedIn, because we will also launch the registration page on LinkedIn, and you can subscribe to our mailing list. It's also, you go to brussels.iiba.org, the very first page, you have subscribed to your mailing list. You always can unsubscribe. We are GDPR compliant for that. Okay. Thanks for attending here in person and at home, and hope to see many of you at the BABOK study group starting next year, limited to 20 people. So hurry up. Thank you. Bye.
Good evening.